Welcome back to the Smart Driving Cars podcast. Thank you for spending time with us. I'm Fred Fishkin, along with the Faculty Chair of Autonomous Vehicle Engineering at Princeton University, Alan Kornhauser. Hi, Alan.
Hey, good morning, Fred, and happy Easter. I guess if we're
We hope
Jewish,
every
if we're Jewish, we're allowed to wish each other a happy Easter. Sure, yeah, why not? Hey, we're seeing all these great views from where we were almost 60 years ago. Again, thank you, no problem. And somebody suggests it's one world and we should get along. I mean, really, we didn't know that before. We should get along. Thank you.
Absolutely. Well, Alan, in the latest edition of Smart Driving Cars, you lead off with an MIT mobility interview with the CEO of Vecna Robotics, Karl Iagnemma. Says from DARPA to robotaxis to warehouses, the full arc of autonomy. This is one you really recommend.
Well, yes, I put it up there on the top. Actually, put together this issue primarily because of this, because it is a really good one. I mean, it's been a great series, and Jane Love, kudos to you for putting on such a great series. But this was really a good one. Unfortunately, I haven't had time to attend half of them, or I've attended many, but or attended on Zoom. But this one I just thought was really good and really serious and largely fundamental. And I encourage everybody to watch it. I agree with at least most of it. Of course, you know me, I'm not going to agree to everything. But really, it's a good one, and thank you, Carl and Jinhua. You really good one.
And you also have a remembrance high up in the issue about the Dinky from 50 years ago.
Wow. I mean, I'd forgotten. I hadn't really forgotten, but it didn't come to mind on March 31st. I can't believe it didn't come to mind because it seems as if it was just yesterday that 50 years ago we welcomed the coming of Conrail, which of course doesn't exist again anymore. I mean, it didn't even last the 50 years. I mean, it lasted only about half of them actually, and maybe even less than half. Um, as to the construct to basically realign the railroads, the seven bankrupt railroads of the Northeast, into the the memorably titled plan called the Final System Plan. I mean, my goodness. I mean, can you imagine somebody titling something the Final System Plan? Yes, the Final System Plan, which basically took what was a total mess of a mobility situation with respect to the railroads in the Northeast, or really almost throughout the United States, but certainly in the Northeast, and basically had the Congress say, geez, we have to do something about this because it's one of the very important mobility systems in the Northeast is about to go bankrupt. Not the good kind of, if there is a good kind of bankruptcy, Chapter 11, but Chapter 6, which means it's not just Wall Street or investors that get hurt. It's everybody because then you sell the assets, you tear up the tracks, you turn them into bikeways. Well, I guess there's some good that comes out of it, but they were in desperate situations, and the important date was April 1, 1976, when Conrail was formed. And it was formed not only for the freight part of the railroads, but for what was left of the freight part of the railroads, but also the passenger part. And of course, out of all that transition from PennCentral and the other six bankrupt railroads to Conrail was the transition that took place on April 1st. It was not an April Fool's joke. Um, and Henry Posner III, Pharaoh equinologist, I should say, who was a junior at the time at Princeton, like March 29th, runs into my office. Professor Cornelius, do you know what happens on a few days from now? Uh, Conrail is born. Oh, great, Henry. Thank you. I guess I knew, of course, I knew that since I'd spent at least the previous year plus dealing with it. Oh, and you know what? The last train to be dispatched in the PennCentral will be the Dinky at 11:45 or whatever the time was. And the first train dispatched by Conrail will be the Dinky coming back from the junction at 12:06 or whatever the time. Oh, Henry. Wow, I'm so thrilled. We have to have a party, Henry said. Well, you mean a party? I'm all into parties. Sounds great. Henry, you bring the troops and I'll bring the champagne. The rest is history. Um, yeah, probably the highest ridership of a dinky ride, certainly in the last 50 years, and maybe even in the previous 50 years, except for, Princeton Yale football game or something like that. Um, anyway, it was a memorable evening. The With most memorable evenings, there's always a drawback. One of the other photographs taken in that was one that showed amidst the crowd toasting the coming of Conrail and the demise of the PennCentral. Um, we of course had to have the conductors join in the team photo, and of course they're holding up a glass also. But really, they were only holding the glass. They did not, because as a railroad employee, I mean, one thing you didn't do was was drink on the job. They did not taste anything. Um, but 2 days later, maybe the first call made by a Conrail lawyer was, Professor Kornheiser, I'm the lawyer. Did those guys really, were they drinking? We need a, no, 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 they weren't. It was just for the photo. Please. They're the best guys in the world. They wouldn't think of it anyway. So they didn't get in trouble, and we had the photo, and we celebrated the coming, and Conrail was created, and Conrail turned out to be successful. I mean, any measure of success, and the freight railroads in the Northeast are still doing pretty darn well, and freight does do well, even though trucks move a lot of stuff. And if you really look at the success of the U.S. railroad industry, it is with freight, which basically had its birth 50 years ago, essentially today. And we celebrated it thanks to Henry Posner III, Pharaoh equinologist, for which he's been a student of the Iron Horse all these years.
And we've mentioned him in podcasts in the last few years as well with some of
Oh
the
yeah, I mean he's
done in
he's he's
Europe.
still he's still in it, and amazing career.
Talk about stirring up memories, Alan. Artemis II is carrying 4 astronauts around the moon and back. You've got a link, and for both of us, you more than me, but what memories this conjures up.
Well, yeah, of course it was part of the run up. It was, and we did that 60 years ago, almost 60 years ago, and yes, it was a big one simply because of the image that was the photograph that was taken of Earthrise over the moon, in December 1968. And they're trying to put out some photographs and so on today, and they're very nice and so on and great, and it's true, but it's different. And when they pass around the back of the moon, and they'll get one that's similar to the one, but I told the class, I just mentioned to the class on Wednesday, um, you know, we did that 60 years ago, almost 60 years ago, with slide rules and an IBM 360 mainframe. And now with whatever, I mean, it should almost be easy. And it's not, of course, but my goodness, it's a good thing. Everything's going well. I mean, in some sense, um, if we progressed, then it should. And we have a lot to do. There's a lot of discussion now about, what about science and science and science, and we can do science a lot better today than we could do it 60 years ago, and so we are doing a lot more science. Turns out we haven't done too much about our own exploration. And yes, do we really need to be there? I don't know. I certainly would like to be there. Uh, guess I'm not going to make it, Fred. But whatever. Yeah. Anyway, others will.
Well, exciting nonetheless. I made sure I told my grandchildren, "Hey, be watching this." Try to-
Yeah, it's worth watching, and I think it's worth watching the next ones. And it's really nice to see the leadership that exists in NASA today, at least, from my perspective. My goodness, if we had Jared Isaacson's and the other places in government, we would be. Can you imagine how good we'd be? Never mind. We don't get.
We won't. We won't.
I shan't be political.
Okay. Right.
What we're trying to do with driverless cars is, I don't think, political. It's just a value to society.
Absolutely. From MSN, Waymo has doubled its weekly ridership in under a year. Now it's up to like 500,000 paid rides a week.
Yeah, I'm wondering why they're using a 500,000 per week as opposed to 100,000 per day. I don't know what the per week, why the per week measure sounds better than the per day. I prefer per day version, but because it kind of, I don't know, maybe I like to think in days as opposed to weeks. But anyway, it is impressive. It is impressive, and it indicates that they're probably doing, 25 rides or so per vehicle or per day. And, that's pretty good productivity, especially when basically everybody you give a ride to is by themselves. And the question is, what can happen if you can get that average vehicle occupancy above one? Because it's not above one because there's empty vehicle repositioning. I doubt the things, but I don't know. I don't think they just drop off a person, then pick up a person, and then drop off a person, and then pick up a person. Um, and the real value proposition of the of driverless is empty vehicle reposition. It's to go from the last person you gave a ride to or persons to the next person or persons you're going to give a ride to. And that's the fundamental problem of mobility, whether it's coal, goods, or people. Where they're coming from is not where they're going to. I mean, that's why you need it. And when you get there, unfortunately, the darn thing is not as symmetric as you would like. There isn't somebody already there wanting to go somewhere else. So either you sit around and wait, which is what people do with their own cars, and therefore that's why you have parking, because the people who use it want to get back home. So they usually have the mobility sit around and wait for them. Not an advanced top concept. that's, the value proposition of having an automation is to then say, okay, phew, nobody here wants to go. Maybe over there is. But why don't we go over there and pick them up? Which is really what Uber and Lyft do, except they have a person in there that needs to be paid for that. And of course, in the numbers, it looks pretty good because there's somebody in there. Doesn't look empty. They claim they have average vehicle occupancies greater than one, even though one of those entities in the vehicle is nothing but an algorithm. I mean, it is a person. I shouldn't call person an algorithm. I don't mean to be derogatory.
You can call
Absolutely
him
not.
Al, right? Right.
But, and so when people talk about, or government talks about average vehicle occupancy, they're counting the driver in there. Buses end up looking good. I mean, wouldn't it be terrible if, like, Princeton University's free bus system would have an average vehicle occupancy of less than one? I mean, actually, it is. I hope it's. I hope it's only when I see it, there's nobody in there besides the driver, but whatever. Next topic, we got to get off
Not
this
what
one.
not what you want to see. From Simply Wall Street, Alan.
Yeah,
This might be a head scratcher. V2X trial in Bordeaux puts connected mobility story in focus. Hmm.
I mean, I guess in Europe, they're still talking about connected vehicles with all this. Sure, I'm glad that in the United States we've moved on from that. I mean, um, anyway, and it talks about the demo ending and what to do next. When a demo ends and there's nothing on the table to go on it, I guess, has that demo been successful? Um, um, anyway, um, trying to think that somebody is going, like Mr. Trump is going to be out there, controlling traffic with it because hey, his information has to, because they're connected. You can organize everything for greatest efficiency in our roadway because it's going to be orchestrated from upon high. I don't know. Glad I'm not going to live to see that.
Financial Times has a report headlined Self-Driving Will Not Make Nissan a Commodity, says CEO.
I mean, it's going to make. I think General Motors is not testing 200 vehicles. I guess they're back to going to make two. They were making it with Cruise, but apparently that wasn't good enough. Um, I don't know. It's very nice that they're going. It's very nice they're going to differentiate themselves with respect to that. Although one would like to do all this so that it is a commodity, so that commodities are things that everybody can have, as opposed to luxuries that only a few. But anyway, and the way to stand out is to, I guess, it's to have peacock feathers and really stand out. So you put a chapeau on top of your car that everybody can see you coming. I don't know. Just, I guess I wasn't in a good mood when I saw that or something. Whatever. But I
Another
throw it out there for people to, I mean, I think it's nice to see that somebody in the auto industry wants to do that, and the way they're doing it is with a chapeau.
Another automaker making some headlines, the Subaru from Autoblog, the 2026 Subaru Outback gains hands-free driving for the first time. This is similar to what I think Ford and GM have because it operates on interstate highways, at least some of them, many of them. Um, and so it's a step that Subaru's taking now.
And Subaru claims that they're better too. So it's not only it's even
Oh,
better than theirs. It's better than
their
theirs.
eyesight we've talked about in the past has been
It was
pretty terrific.
fantastic. I mean, for years I would show their commercial that they made in like 2014, which basically promoted eyesight with this, crash dummies and a crash test. And it's just, to me, it's a classic. And at the end, it's basically, eyesight keeps it from crashing and saves the dummies. And Subaru comes in there and says, basically, the best crash is a no crash. I don't think that literally essentially that's what they said. And it was beautiful. And in fact, they've been all the tests that IIHS did early on with uh, automated emergency systems. Subaru was always out on top. They've had that working, and here they are with this, and in the model they're offering it's standard equipment, and so um, I really praise Subaru on this. And it's not just because Subaru's North American headquarters are in New Jersey, but it's also because Subaru's North American headquarters are in New Jersey. They make such good decisions about where they should locate. They've got to be good, right, Fred? We can't
Absolutely.
argue against that one. But in all seriousness, it's they've been out there in the front of this. Mercedes also, since in 2014, I couldn't wait to go buy one. That was the first guy on my block. But this is really a step up, and committed for the right reasons. Committed because it does really, at least they're convinced. And of course, I guess I believe them. Simply because the technologies of these things is getting to a point is that you know they can do the driving function better than I can. They see better than I can. They react faster than I can. I can't compete. So therefore, why not drive for me? Do I really have to sit there and drive and do this lane keeping thing of trying to keep this thing between two white lines? And in fact, I've argued and another one of the things that I'll be putting in there is basically some comments about the Tesla truck and the technology they're putting in there. But if you and
We're talking about the
uh,
semi.
yeah, the semi and Jay Leno, they do an interview with Jay Leno, and Jay Leno talks about how difficult the job of a truck driver really is. And it's not only difficult, it's dangerous. And years back, I assembled some data that basically was showing it more dangerous than being a coal miner. It is a tough job, especially for long haulers. You're out there 24 hours to get 10 hours of productivities. Why? So that you have some rest to be able to be productive the following 10 hours. And so I guess you sit around you sit around at a truck stop or somewhere along a road. But to me, the beauty of driverless on a long haul truck is that we should be able to make it so that the life of the truck driver, who's already dedicating 24 hours of her day to a truck, can actually let that truck and that cargo be productive more than 10, Because if the truck's not moving and the cargo's not moving, or even if the empty repositioning isn't moving to get to the next load, that's a lack of productivity and enormously valuable assets. Even though it is chaperoned by a person 24 hours. Now they only get paid for 10, but they're obligated for 24. They can't go home and be with their spouse, their kids, their parents, go to a ball game. They have to be with it. Or, I guess if you're at some truck stop, there might be a little league game going on somewhere across the field. But this employment, this trucker is is actually on duty 24 hours, sitting there with that asset. Gets paid for 10 hours of service or whatever the hours of service are. Why? Because most of that time is going to be spent trying to keep that truck between two white lines so she doesn't die. Those folks they need to be paid. And I guess those that do it are paid. But are they really paid for 24? No, they're paid for 10. Now you put automation, driverless automation on there so that the truck and the cargo can be productive 22 hours a day with the person there. Now you have 22 hours of productivity to pay for that 10 hours that you've been paying that trucker. That doesn't mean it. No, they don't have to sit there and keep the darn thing between two white lines because technology is doing that. Technology is getting to a point where probably doing it at least as good, if not better. And he could do it. So all of a sudden, you create a nice atmosphere in the trunk. Have that person do something else during 10 hours spread over 24. Oh, and that truck moves now 22 hours during the day. That asset churning, productive. The entity that's responsible for that asset has a lot more money in their pocket to pay this person. Seems like a win-win. And you haven't changed the responsibility that the individual has to the truck, which is still 24 hours. You've changed what they do over that 24 hours. Some of it is sleep. Why not? And if something gets, you need to be pulled over and you still need to have those little triangles put out there to make sure nobody crashes into you like everybody. Some people would like you to have instead of flashing lights. Person can be, hey, get up, put out the thing. They can do that. They can do all the things that might need to be done under those situations. They might be able to talk to a policeman if they're, or keep it from running over a fire hose, or move it out of harm's way. And I actually allow that truck to be productive now instead of 10 hours a day. Not only the truck, the cargo in the back. That's inventory. And anybody deals with asset. I mean, inventory that's sitting around. I mean, you don't need to be an Orphe major at Princeton to realize I mean, anyway. So the opportunity of driverless in trucks is not to remove the driver, it's allow the driver to be productive, allow the asset to be productive 22 hours. And I repeat it many times, but it's not talked about in all these postings that we see people writing these great papers. It's a shame they're missing the obvious value proposition for this. Now, of course, uh, government is going to have to change the hour service rules. But those hours of service rules are to make sure that the driver is able to keep the truck between two white lines. That's not the job anymore. When you bring in a steam shovel to dig a trench, you don't need the gals out there with shovels shoveling. You let the machine do that. They get to do,
Right.
things that end up being safer, more productive, allow them to earn more, better feed their family, not take as many drugs. Why isn't that the value proposition that everybody's talking about here? Sorry.
Well, the focus has been on economics, and the Wall Street Journal a couple of weeks ago had a story about how much the truckers like being in this vehicle. So, and as you were saying,
Yeah,
that's
well,
really important.
right. Well, hey, for office workers, don't they like being an office worker with a nice office? Isn't OSHA supposed to go in there and look at what the surrounding are for workers? Has OSHA gone in and looked at, you know, what truck drivers are made to do? Made to keep a vehicle between two white lines when technology exists to do that as well as they do it? And hey, I just say as well, because they are very good, but likely better.
Terrific. Alan, you've got a link to a book in the latest newsletter,
Yep.
Why Machines Learn: The Elegant Math Behind Modern AI by Anil Ananthaswamy. Um, Highly recommended by someone you know too.
Yeah, I mean, just maybe you all want to wonder why um, John Hopfield. I mean, John Hopfield was reading it, so I said, "Ooh, if John's reading this, I better." How am I so out of it? I mean, I'm almost a year and a half late. Although I guess hopefully, I know a lot of the stuff that's in there. But it is, and it's very well done. And the really and the arithmetic or math that's in it is explained very well. And I just think it's it's a it's a good read.
And I understand you have a bit of a ride-sharing road trip coming up, Alan, and warming up for.
Yeah, we're taking a decide instead of flying, we're going to road trip it and do ride sharing road trip. So instead of buying two airplane tickets, we'll be two people in one car. Wow, I think it's more energy efficient, and hopefully the Subaru system like that works pretty darn well for systems like that. If they do, then hey, why not? We'll see what happens, especially when it's ride sharing.
Simple economics, right?
I think so. Although, airplanes have to, airplanes, well, yes, I guess some people don't fly commercial. Um, and there is ride sharing, a lot of ride sharing in commercial these days. And in fact, it's so ride sharing, it's gotten to be, there isn't a seat available.
A quick reminder to everyone that you can find us these days on the Transportation Channel. There's an app for iOS and Android. We're on Apple TV, Fire TV, Roku, on the web as well. So you can find us there. You can also find us, of course, at smartdrivingcar.com, and my tech reports are at techstination.com. Thank you for taking the time to watch or listen. Again, have a wonderful holiday weekend, Easter and Passover. Stay safe.
Yes, and another thing I should say about the book is that it's not the math behind modern AI. It's really the math behind driverless vehicles. Without that, at least we wouldn't be where we are.